Thank you for all your time and your interesting presentations. Let's move on to our panel number 2 from today's seminar. I repeat, in case you are only joining, this is the International Seminar on Women, Politics, and Sustainability in Oceania, Contemporary Regional Challenges. And for panel number 2, which is named Oceania's Contemporary Dynamics, Narratives of Power and Climate Adaptation, I'm happy to welcome Professor Claudia Lara and Dr. Antonina Ivanova, which will be our panelists today. First of all, please allow me to introduce Professor Claudia Lara. She is a doctoral candidate at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, with a focus on Southeast Asia and Oceania. Her doctoral work examined the internationalization process of Thai multinational companies. As part of her goals, she conducted a research stay at Thammasat University in Bangkok, Thailand. She has served as a visiting professor at the Dr. Jose Maria Luis Mora Research Institute in the Master's Program in International Cooperation for Development in Mexico City, as well as a professor in the Regional Studies area at the Faculty of Political and Social Sciences at our university, where she teaches the subjects Asian, the Pacific, and Southeast Asia and Oceania. In 2023, she made a judgment on an investigation titled The Sociopolitical Evolution of the Ao Dai in Vietnam, the path to patrimonialization for the Ministry of Culture and Sport of Spain and the Museo del Traje in Madrid, Spain. Professor Lara, we are very pleased to have you here again at PUEAAO. Please be welcome, and the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Vania de la Vega. I am really glad to be in this forum for all of us. And as Vania has already said, the title of my presentation is Blue Pacific Narratives, Island Nations versus OBOR and the Indo-Pacific Strategy. Could you please help me with the presentation? Thanks a lot. At the beginning, I would like to thank the University Program of Studies on Asia, Africa, and Oceania, and all its amazing team for its kind invitation to participate in this relevant seminar about South Pacific or Oceania and its contemporary regional challenges. In this order of ideas, I would like to invite each member of this seminar to consider Blue Pacific narratives, island nations versus OBOR and the Indo-Pacific strategy, recognizing that during the Cold War, the islands of the South Pacific served as a kind of an Anglo-French speaking lake and a space for nuclear testing, and traditionally as a space for exploitation of fishing resources and biodiversity. Next slide, please. To this end, the objective of my presentation is as follows. Reflect on the potential of the Blue Pacific endorsed in 2017 by the Pacific Islands Forum as a narrative and a strategy for empowering Pacific Island nations, Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia in response to mega regional projects and new geopolitical maps such as the Indo-Pacific and China's maritime Silk Road. Next slide, please. Historically, the Pacific Islands have been zones of influence for various world powers, making their resources and territories accessible to them. However, with the prominence of the two geopolitical initiatives, the Indo-Pacific and the Maritime Silk Road, island nations need to assert a stronger stance of these agendas, as well as on the sovereignty and ability to act independently and make their own decisions. On the one hand, the Indo-Pacific strategy is an attempt to counter China influence in the Indian and Pacific Oceans through various projects such as the Free and Open Indo-Pacific FOIP, initiated by Japan in 2000s, the U.S. pivot to Asia, or the strategic rebalancing of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, created in 2011. Trade and Investment Cooperation through Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, from 2016 to the extinct. Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, called Quad, in 2007 by Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. And finally, 2021, AUKUS, a military security and defense mechanism led by Australia, England, and the United States. On the other hand, there is China with its mega regional Maritime Silk Road project launched by President Xi Jinping in 2013 with connectivity as its cornerstone and enabling the construction of physical infrastructure projects and investment in natural resource extraction in the South Pacific island. Today, China is the second largest donor in the region, behind Australia. Sussex support since 2006 through the Pacific Islands Development Cooperation Forum and its diplomatic relations with at least 10 of the region's islands. Given this turbulent and complex scenario, the challenges are undoubtedly multidirectional. Among these, the Pacific Island countries' capacity to implement assertive long-term diplomacy in both expanding geopolitical and geoeconomic projects and to express their unique interests, priorities, and needs stand out. To the Maritime Silk Road and the Indo-Pacific strategy, we must add the interest in the region of Australia with Pacific Step Up, New Zealand with a project called Pacific Reset, Indonesia with Pacific Elevation, England with Pacific Uplift, and United States with Pacific Pledge. As we must not lose sight of the fact that the Pacific Island countries don't play a prominent role in these projects or maps. For this reason, they have developed their own cartography, a counter map called the Blue Pacific. Blue Pacific strategy was born in 2017 at the 48th meeting of the Pacific Islands Forum and seeks to be a mechanism for collective action to build Pacific regionalism, identity, the importance of the Pacific Ocean, and the shared responsibilities it has with the region and the world. Next slide, please. Various specialists consider the Blue Pacific to be two ways of being interpreted, as a narrative and as a strategy. As a narrative, it offers alternative perspectives on Oceania, supported by the documents Framework for Pacific Regionalism and Blue Pacific. Furthermore, it allows to the recognition of the Pacific Ocean as a central element of the region's geographies, identities, interconnections, and shared responsibilities. Oceania as a vast and interconnected territory, and the Blue Pacific outlines an expanded concept of security that includes human security, humanitarian assistance, environmental security, and regional cooperation to foster resilience to disasters and climate change. Finally, the responsibilities and the stewardship of the health of the Pacific Ocean by the members of the Pacific Islands Forum. In this regard, the framework for Pacific regionalism affirms that people of the Pacific are the custodian of the world's largest, most peaceful, and most abundant ocean, its many islands, and its rich culture diversity. Next, please. Yes, it's okay, perfect. And a strategy, the Blue Pacific, does two things. First, it maps out an alternative approach, but rejecting OBOR and the Indo-Pacific strategy as recognizing the importance of the Pacific Ocean, as well as the core narratives and issues of the Pacific Islands. Second, it facilitates assertive, peaceful diplomacy and empowers Pacific Island countries by placing climate change at the heart of their security agenda. These countries are already demonstrating resistance to Western dominance and greater openness to the establishment of new regional organizations, such as the Pacific Islands Development Forum. Next slide, please. One of the main questions at this point of the presentation could be, can the Blue Pacific as a framework for assertive diplomacy in the Pacific successfully counteract the new dominant narratives and cartographies? Next slide, please. One of the main points to answer this question could be the next. As at the outset, it must be acknowledged that the Blue Pacific has empowered Pacific Island countries by giving them the ability to frame and tell their own narratives and chart their own spaces and places, their region, in the face of the overwhelming global interest of powers seeking to include Oceania on their maps and agendas. And another kind of answer could be, from a regional studies perspective, the Blue Pacific as a conceptual tool goes beyond the geography imposed by colonizing powers and invite us to demystify it through the recognition of other narratives outside of Western powers. And that's all from my side. Thank you much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I am all ears to your questions.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for this nice presentation. Let's please proceed with the presentation of Dr. Ivanova. First of all, let me introduce her. She is a professor and researcher in the Department of Economics and director of the Center for Study of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, at the Autonomous University of Baja California Sur. She is a member of the National System of Researchers and a member of the Mexican Academy of Sciences. She represented Mexico on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Bureau within the UN framework as Vice Chair of Working Group 3, Mitigation. She is Master in Economic Journalism, a PhD in Economics with a postdoc in Peace Studies at the University of Bradford, United Kingdom. She researches international cooperation, climate action, green finance, tourism, and sustainable development. Author or editor of 25 books, 166 chapters, and more than 200 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Lead author of the IPCC 4th Assessment Report, the 5th and 6th IPCC reports, and currently of the 7th IPCC Report Awards. 2017, the Science and Technology Award and the Medal of Scientific and Technological Merit, State of Baja California Sur, 2021, recognized by the Mexican Consortium of APEC Study Centers for her contributions to Pacific Rim Studies, 2024, the Finance Diamond Award from the Mexican Institute of Finance Executives. And today, Dr. Ivanova will be presenting the topic Sustainability and Adaptation to Climate Change in Oceania. Dr. Ivanova, the floor is yours.
Hello, I am very pleased and very honored to take part in this important panel, Oceania's Contemporary Dynamics, Narrative Power and Climate Adaptation. And I will present about the sustainability and adaptation to climate change in Oceania. In this presentation, we will see some, excuse me, please. We will see, no. Vanya, could you please present my slides?
Absolutely, Doctor.
Thank you. Oh, no, it is presenting now, yes? Okay.
It is, yes, we were able to see your presentation.
Okay, fine. So we will speak about the sustainability and adaptation to climate change in Oceania. And in this sense, we will be based on the results of the Climate Change 2022 IPCC Assessment Report, the Working Group 2, that is named Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability. The scientific evidence is unequivocal that climate change is here and is a menace for the human well-being, the biodiversity, and in general to the health of the planet. The key risks in Oceania are the loss and degradation of coral reefs in tropical Australia. We also have the increase in heat-related mortality and morbidity across Australia, disruptions and decline in agricultural production, and decreased stress in rural communities in southwestern, southern, and mainland eastern Australia. We also have the transition or collapse of alpine ash, snow gum, woodland, pencil pine, and northern Hara forest in southern Australia. So the new risks that are in the scenarios are the compounding risks and complex risks that are linking different risks and create more menace to the natural and human systems in the low coastal areas. Very important are the small island developing states in Oceania. These are the islands Las Kiribati, Vanuatu, Timbuktu, and so on. And these islands are very, very at risks from extreme events such as heatwaves, droughts, floods, storms, and fires that have caused deaths and injuries and affected many households, many communities and businesses via impacts on ecosystems, critical infrastructure, essential services, food production, the national economy. We also are witnesses of climate migration from small island development states in this moment. We also can have the do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Some important impacts are noticed in the ecosystems. We have climate trends and extreme events that have combined with exposure and vulnerabilities to cause major impacts for many natural systems. And an example on world level is the bramble K. melomys, an endemic mammal species that became extinct due to loss of habitat associated with sea level rise and storm surges in the Torres Strait. Also, another effect that is recognized on world level is the extensive coral bleaching and loss of temperature kelp forests that have occurred due to ocean warming and marine heat waves. A very important example is the Great Barrier Reef, that is recognized that the biggest animal in the world and is an ecosystem for the reproduction of many marine species that are very important for fisheries, for tourism, and other human activities. In the human systems, the climate trends and extreme events have combined with exposure and vulnerability to cause major impacts for some human systems. Socioeconomic costs arising from climate variability and change have increased. Extreme heat has led to excess deaths and increased rates of many illnesses. Low droughts have caused financial and emotional stress in farm households and rural communities. Extreme coastal flooding have increased due to sea level rise superimposed upon high tides and storm surges. The tourism has been affected by coral bleaching, fires, poor sky seasons, and receding glaciers. And the complex risks that are in the scenarios for the future are the fertile sea level rise, ocean warming, and ocean acidification that are projected. More extreme fire weather is projected in southern and eastern Australia and over northern and eastern New Zealand. Increased drought frequency is also projected for the same territories, including northern New Zealand. Increased heavy rainfall intensity is projected with fewer tropical cyclones and a greater proportion of severe cyclones. And climate impacts are cascading and compounding across sectors and socioeconomic and natural systems. So the complex connections are generated new types of risks, exacerbating existing stressors and constraining adaptation options. An example is the impact that cascade between interdependent systems and infrastructure and cities and settlements. And another example is the 2019-2020 Southeast Australia wildfires. And the IPCC has outlined 9 key risks for the Oceania. In first place is the loss and degradation of coral reefs and associated biodiversity and ecosystem service values. And second, loss of alpine biodiversity in Australia due to less snow. Third, transition or collapse of alpine ash, snow gum woodlands, and pencil pine and northern Jarrah forest in southern Australia. Here we can see in the image that we got the first snow gum summit, how to protect, how to adapt in the snow gum forest to the climate change. It was held from February 14 to 16 this year. And also the other forest, as kelp forest, we have marine heat waves and overgrazing by climate-driven range extension of herbivore fish and urchins. And the other key risks are loss of natural and human systems and low-lying coastal areas. In first place, the small island developing states. Another risk that is not so much mentioned, but it is the decline in agricultural production and increased stress in rural communities. In this sense, we have some risk to the food security in the region, increasing heat-related mortality and morbidity for people and wildlife, and also cascading and compounding aggregate impacts on cities, settlements, infrastructure, supply chains, and services due to wildfires. Also, the sea level is very important, and it's influenced by floods, droughts, heat waves, and storms. An important risk for the adaptation in this region is stated by the IPCC Working Group 2, and it is the inability of institutions and governance systems to manage climate risk. Here are some examples in the Hawaii, where is developed the aquaculture, leading by a Hawaiian tradition, and it is meant to adapt to climate change into the warmer waters. And today there are 50 aquaculture farms in Hawaii, and they are raising abalone, salmon, and variety of other aquatic life. Also, the coral farms are being developed in the region. There is existing also the coral farmers growing white that is indicating to the communities how they can help not only to prevent the corals from bleaching, but also how to grow corals. And in this sense, for example, the university results of some research project are represented in the Waikiki Aquarium, where all the members of the community can have access to this and can see how they can participate. And speaking about the sustainability, we must see the Sustainable Development Goals as a sustainable development ecosystem. And in this sense, we must know that we are part of the biosphere, and that the most important sustainable development goals are the life in the sea, the life on the ground, the climate change adaptation, and the water supply. Because if we don't have a safe planet, the society and the economy are also at risk. Also, we must see the wider benefits of adaptation. For example, the reliable energy, the roads and rural areas, the food security are supporting the Sustainable Development Goal 1, no poverty. The green buildings, green spaces, clean water, renewable energy, sustainable transport in cities are contributing to the Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health and well-being, and Sustainable Development Goal 11, sustainable cities. Also, the policies of adaptation can increase youth access to land, credit, knowledge, and skills, and can support agri-food employment, not only for youth, but also for women, to reduce the gender inequality, and this is reducing the inequality according to Goal 10. Also, the restoring connected habitats can provide corridors for vulnerable species, and this is supporting the life on land and the life below water. We have some adaptation barriers, and this is the ambition, scope, and progress of the adaptation process have increased across governments, non-government organizations, businesses, and communities. However, adaptation progress is uneven due to gaps, barriers, and limits to adaptation and adaptive capacity deficits. Barriers include lack of consistent policy direction, competing objectives, divergent risk perceptions and values, knowledge constraint, inconsistent informations, fear of litigation. We got already the first climate change litigations, upfront costs, and lack of engagement, trust, and resources. We also have this lack of equality, the insufficient inclusion of gender in the policy making, and of the indigenous community. For ecosystems and critical thresholds, further climate change may cause irreversible damage with limited scope for adaptation. In some human systems, fundamental limits to adaptation include thermal, thresholds and safe fresh water, and the inability of some low-lying coastal community to adapt in place as that sits. And well, which will be the concluding remarks about adaptation, a range of incremental and transformative adaptation options and pathway is available as long as enablers are in place to implement them. Responses that lock in risk by discounting ongoing and changing climate risks can create maladaptation and impede long-term adaptation goals. Available tools are diversifying with features and system methodologies, and dynamic adaptive policy pathways being increasingly used to facilitate the shift from static to dynamic adaptation. And the other shifting to affront the potential cascading impacts is that we must shift from reactive to anticipatory planning for changing climate risks, not to expect that the damage is done, but to prevent, to plan, and have the dynamic adaptation. The key enablers for effective adaptation include shifting from reactive to anticipatory planning, integration, coordination across levels of government and sectors, inclusive and collaborative institutional arrangements, government leadership, policy alignment, nationally consistent and accessible information and decision support tools, along with adaptation funding and finance and robust, consistent, and strategic policy commitment. The financing and the information for all the population is very important in this sense. And a focus on the role of societal inequalities and environmental degradation play in generating climate change vulnerability can enable fairer adaptation outcomes, gender and youth inclusion. Aboriginal and islander peoples and Tangata Wenua Maori can enhance effective adaptation through the passing down of knowledge about climate change planning that promotes collective action and mutual support across the region. And finally, according to the topic of this event, the choice to involve women in climate action, in decision-making and governance as active agents is a choice for sustainability, a choice that will lead to fostering the conservation of natural resources and avoiding unsustainable use of land and oceans. And how do we see our future? Reduce climate risks, that is the adaptation, reduce greenhouse gas emissions mitigation, enhance biodiversity, and of course, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Climate action is intrinsically linked to the sustainability. And this will be the climate resilient and sustainable development where adaptation is essential. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivanova, for your presentation. Now, please, let's proceed with PUEAA's commentator, who is Dr. Pablo Ramírez. And he holds a bachelor's degree in journalism and communication from Ming Chuan University in Taiwan, a master's degree in contemporary Asian studies from the University of Amsterdam, and a doctorate in Thai studies from Chulalongkorn University. He has worked as a research coordinator at Bangkok University, as an internationalization coordinator at the Union of Latin American and Caribbean University, as an advisor of the Undersecretary of Basic Education at the Mexican Ministry of Public Education, and as a political advisor at the New Zealand Embassy in Mexico. He is currently part of the University Program on Asian, African, and Oceanian Studies, PUEAAO, of the Humanities Coordination of our university, where he works as a researcher. He is co-coordinator of the Southeast Asia Model on Diploma on Asian Studies. Pablo, welcome, and we would love to hear your comments.
Thank you, Vania. Thank you, Professor Lara and Professor Ivanova for your presentations. I think this panel was very, very good because mixing both ways of the Blue Pacific and then the impact of climate change in the region gives us a really good vision of the situation right now in the Pacific. And I think this idea of Blue Pacific allows all these nations to leave this stereotype of being small island states and present themselves more as a large oceanic continent, if we can call it like that. No, this gives them greater leverage and agency in the international arena, allowing them to act more as a unified bloc. And we can see this, that this is a strategy that benefits them all, as we can see that there's already like this 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, where they prioritize climate change and its impact on peace and security, framing it as the single greatest threat to the region. And I think this collective advocacy can influence international climate negotiation and global funding for climate adaptation, especially because we have seen that the biggest polluters are also some of the ones pledging the more money for climate change, but in the end, we don't really see them spending the money on the different projects they have decided to support. And this, as Professor Ivanova showed, the impact in the region is huge. I mean, we can see it in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia as it's bleaching. We can see it in the rising of the water levels in the Pacific Islands, especially Vanuatu. And all these territories are very, very fragile right now. We can see now Australia is offering the first visas to Vanuatu, people from Vanuatu, to emigrate to Australia due to this rising level of the water. No, and I think we have to avoid this, because although it is a good idea or a good program to help the populations of Vanuatu to go to a safer area, I mean, we're going to lose the culture, we're going to lose the community, we're going to lose the knowledge that the Vanuatu people and the different islanders have. So I think definitely climate change is a topic of importance for Oceania. And it also, this idea of Blue Pacific allows a little bit more, how to say, presence of the region between both the United States and China, as Claudia Lara explained earlier on. No, the Pacific Island can use their collective identity to demand genuine partnership that align with their priorities, not the ideas that the superpowers can have. And it also has already an impact. Last week, we could see that there was an agreement at the UN to regulate maritime trade and how they pollute the Pacific. So hopefully it's a small change, but it definitely has a very big impact in the whole region. So hopefully Oceania will gain more weight in the international arena, and we will actually take care of them and cooperate towards the well-being, because they're just the front line of the whole international or the world dealing with climate change. So we can see it here in Mexico now that we have had 4 non-stop months of rain. Our city is not adapted to that, and this is part of climate change, right? We have more violent rains, and even if our city was supposed to be kind of adapted to climate change, we can see that it is not. So what is happening to us, it's going to happen even worse to the Pacific Island. So hopefully from PUEAAO, from universities in Mexico, we can focus more on what's happening in this area of the world, and we can contribute in a very small way but to the debate on what's happening in climate change in Oceania. So thank you very much, both of you, Claudia Lara and Antonina Ivanova, for your presentation. It's been very enriching, and thank you, PUEAAO, for organizing this very important and interesting discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Pablo, for making the comments of this panel number 2. And the floor is open for questions and comments. I would like to ask our team whether there are questions in social media, and also you're welcome to write your questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. In the meanwhile, I would like to ask our both presenters, why do you think these topics are important for Mexican students and in general for Mexican scholars? Why should we care? So maybe we can use the same order as you presented, starting with Claudia.
Thank you so much for the question. I guess, first of all, because everybody of us are citizens of the world. So that's the main and I guess the most important reason to be very with more attention with these topics. And as Professor Pablo has already said, because climate change is a topic of the world, not only for Oceania or South Pacific islands. That's my comment.
Thank you, Claudia. Dr. Antonina.
Yes, well, my comment will be that the climate change is the threat of our time, and it is for all the planet, for the planet health, important for all the countries, and the countries that are mostly affected by the climate change are the countries that are between the Tropic of the Capricorn and the Tropic of the Cancer. And Mexico is one of these countries. And also because Mexico has two coasts by Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, and many areas vulnerable to climate change, as we already have shown the rains, the cyclones in the coasts, also some wildfires, the food security is also affected. So we must see that we have common problems with other areas of the world, and by this learn by the other countries' experiences and generate some cooperation between our countries. Many countries of Oceania and Mexico were part of the Asia-Pacific Economic Mechanism for Collaboration, the APEC. So within APEC, there are some policies how to collaborate and financing from the most developed to the less developed countries. So all these topics are very important for the Mexican students, or about the adaptation, financing flows and damage, how to develop proactive adaptation. And this is important not only to students that are studying ecology, for example, but for students that are studying medicine, that are studying agriculture, ecology, and so on. It is very, very wide topic, very important to researchers and to students from all countries.
Thank you, professors. As you may know, from May of this year in PUEAAO, we are studying Oceania, and we are always asking ourselves which features are similar between Mexico and Oceania. And absolutely, I agree that, well, first of all, we have like common problems. Maybe the biggest and the most important one is climate change. And we are trying to understand this kind of dynamics that seems to be in a not very informed first moment, regions which seems to be very far away. But when we start to deal with more information and being familiar with this kind of flows of information and which are the main problems that are being faced by our continent as well as Oceania, we understand that we are facing the same kind of problematics. And also I was thinking about this as a result of colonization. Oceania has like a different dynamic regarding colonization. In the first panel, Dr. Anita was explaining us a little bit of colonization in Papua New Guinea. And I think that in several of the countries in this region, we can understand many of these problems through colonialism, because they are facing the result of the climate change, where probably they didn't really pollute a lot, but they need to move from their own countries, and they also are being affected, for instance, for tourism that comes from different metropolis. And I wonder, could they be traveling as well? Are they polluting at the same levels that as the tourism is polluting? So that will be like my concerns. Pablo, will you have questions or any comments that you would like to share with Claudia and Antonina?
No, well, I think yes, they don't even produce 1% of green gases, the whole region. Like if we take out Australia and New Zealand, of course. And they're the ones suffering the most from climate change. So we can see that it is very unfair, and we need to have more empathy towards what's happening there as a global society. We need to do more. But yeah, this is maybe something that as scholars in Mexico, we see Oceania as a region that is so far away from us, and it's very difficult to relate to what's happening there. But yeah, they are at the forefront of climate change and fighting climate change. No, so as Dr. Ivanova was saying, Mexico also has regions that are going to suffer from rising levels of water. So eventually we will also have people displaced in our own country because of climate change. So we need to, as a global society, take care of this in the most serious way possible. And unfortunately, it seems that the development goals that were set by the United Nations are definitely not going to be met. So yeah, we kind of lost our first chance to do something meaningful for the world as a whole. No, so let's see what happens in the near future.
Thank you, Pablo. So we still have some minutes left. So I would like to ask for a final comment following the same order, starting with Claudia and then with Dr. Antonina, please.
About what Professor Pablo said, or
well,
what you say?
Your final comment for the panel. Please.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I am wrong, but I guess not just the climate change is the only topic in the agenda for Oceania or the Pacific Islands of the South. As I have already told in my presentation, other topics like human security and humanitarian assistance are really, really important in this part of the world. So we have to keep that in mind, and that is the fight between Indo-Pacific strategy and the OBOR with China, who is going to give more financial resources for this kind of topics that needs Oceania. So the coin is in the air, and we are going to know in the next years who is going to win this part of the planet, of the world. That's all for my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Dr. Ivanova, please, your final comment.
I would like to outline the importance of financing for climate action. And also the climate action is very related, as I already stated, with the sustainability, with sustainable development goals. We cannot achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030, but we can advance in these sustainable development goals. The human security is very related also to the climate change impacts and to the sustainability. So I would like to speak about the historical response of the developed countries that began to generate greenhouse gases since 1880, and there were the main reason that the climate change began by the accumulating of these greenhouse gases. So this historical responsibility first was represented in the Kyoto Protocol, where the developed countries only had to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions. And in the Kyoto Protocol, very small quantity of financial resources was dedicated to the adaptation in the vulnerable countries. After the COP10 that was held in Cancun, Mexico, in 2010, this point of view was changed. And the conclusion was that all the countries have to do something to stop the climate change, to stop the emissions, to diminish the emissions, because we are the last generation that can stop the rise of the temperatures to 2 degrees Celsius. And in this sense, the historical responsibility was changed, was shifted to the support that the developed economies must give to the emerging and less developed countries. So it is very important, and now we have a treat for this financial assistance, because the US aid was practically abolished by Donald Trump. And on the other hand, we have great expenses from the European countries to arm themselves in order to the threats they receive by Russia. And this means that the financial resources are withdrawn from this area of sustainability and climate action and are going to other areas that are threats to the humanity instead of being help to the humanity. So I want to make some highlighting of this specific moment. I suppose that this moment should not last for many years, but it would be very difficult to avoid this lacking of financial resources and aid for developing countries. So we must see other sources, maybe temporarily, as indigenous knowledge, as the participation of community, routing experiences, top-down planning, and so on, that combined with the resources that the developing countries receive. And the Belt and Road Initiative of China, as Dr. Lara also already mentioned, is very important in this sense. We are expecting that the financing from the Chinese sources will not diminish in the future years. So it is very challenging moment we are living, and I hope we will make our best as the generation, as students, as academicians, and so on, to overcome this difficult moment.
Thank you, Dr. Ivanova. And Professor Giron, please, the floor is yours.
Well, I have been just hearing some the conference, and congratulations, Antonina, to be here and to accept our invitation, and also to Dr. Claudia Lara. Yes, you know, I'm going to make a comment. It's not a question, but we are making a research about electric cars, the automobile industrial cars, electric. And while we are seeing all the economic development of China since before the financial reforms that they have with Deng Xiaoping, they were trying to find other substitutions, to substitute oil that they don't have, and also try to have a development, but from them, not from other countries. So they decided to have their own development program, and so they have invested a lot of research. What I have found is that they invest a lot in renewable investments. So they are now in the top of renewable, in the renewable industrial. But it is not because they like COP29 or COP30, that next COP that they are going to have in Brazil. Is because they plan since 50 years ago, because they don't have oil and they have a lot of carbon, and that's why is the first, how to say, how they made the development plan. So now they have the first place in renewable, and those are the ones that these Chinese corporations are the ones that are helping the climate change, to change the climate change. So besides that, we have making the investment. We are trying to find the big corporations, not only in Africa and Latin America, but also in the Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific. And it is very interesting how these companies, at least from the first 10 top Chinese corporations, are in not only, well, are of course in the OBOR route. It is very interesting also who are the ones that are investing, especially the institutional investors. So the question is this development that China is having, is it going to help the global South, or they are going to, or they are having a lot of money, they are having a lot of profits, and especially these Chinese corporations. So I don't believe that they are just as nice as many people see them. But I think that my hypothesis is that they are not only for the renewables, because now they are that, because they invest a lot of money many years ago, before the financial reforms. Well, that's a comment, but I don't know if, what do you think about my hypothesis? That's a question.
Dr. Alicia Giron, I guess it's very difficult to imagine that can be a possibility to change this kind of problem that we are talking about, climate change, because China is spending a lot of money to have resources around the world. So what is going to do with all the resources as oil in every region of this world? So I guess it's not a possibility, but could be a great help for Oceania, I guess. I don't.
Yes, but not in oil or in carbon. It's all in the mining process, especially for the digital economy. And they are spoiling all the people that are in those mineral reserves. well.
Well, I would say that China is investing also in resources that are very important for the renewable energy and new technologies, because China has also the ambition to take the place that left the United States as world climate leader. So when United States with Trump is exiting these agreements, China is wanting to reinforce this world leadership, not only in economics and in politics, but also in the environmental issues. So it is controversial now in this moment. It is very difficult to say, but it is good to know that China also had the ambition to develop green technologies. It is in the first place in the world by production of solar panels and so on. So I don't have final answer to the question, but we must observe how the thing develops.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Professor Lara, Professor Ivanova, Dr. Pablo, and of course our director, Professor Alicia Giron, as well as the technical team from PUEAO that is making this activity possible. So let's take, please, our picture for the panel. So Gabriela, please lead us.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, lastly, I would like to share with the audience what PUEAO is doing next regarding activities on Oceania. And well, this activity will be in Spanish, so I will switch language. Tenemos programado para los viernes de noviembre y el principio de diciembre esta muy bella actividad que viene desde las artes, Alas del Mundo, que es un taller de acuarela de las aves de África, Asia y Oceanía. Es nivel básico, no necesitan preparación anterior en técnicas de acuarela. Es una actividad presencial aquí en las oficinas del PUEAO. Para ver detalles de esta actividad, por favor, entren al sitio web o escríbanos a cualquiera de nosotros con el fin de conocer esta actividad a detalle. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We were very pleased to hold this first seminar on international seminar with our colleagues from the Embassy of Australia in Mexico, from Dr. Anita from Papua New Guinea, Professor Claudia Lara from the Faculty of Political and Social Sciences, and Professor Ivanova from the Autonomous University of Baja California. So thank you very much, as well as our commentator from PUEA. Thank you very much. So Alicia, would you like to make some closing remarks?
No, thank you very much. It has been very interesting for people that we have had with our guests. And well, we hope to send you later the grabación, the record. And thank you very much. And we hope that you continue sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much. And very nice to see you. Adios,
Thank you.
Antonina. Gracias.
Thank you.
Claudia.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.